Okay. So we'll give people a few minutes to kind of roll in. I am out of the country right now. It is 2 a.m. where I am, so this is going to be a slightly different session, but we're going to do our best. We open the chat, so if anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you have anything that you would like discussed, for anyone just rolling in, so I'm out of the country right now. It's the middle of the night here, so I'm going to be speaking very quietly. Let me know if you can't hear me. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, let's just head in. So take a moment and just show up where you are. I'm going to put us all on mute here, just so we don't wake everyone up. Shift your attention to the environment that you're in right now. Let your attention slow way down to the speed of this moment. And those of you who have been at this for a while are going to find that when you do that, there's this stopping place. This place where the movements of your day come to a halt. And all of a sudden you're able to expand into this moment. Those of you who haven't been doing this for a while, the road to that is to watch your breath. Your breath is happening in real time, in the present moment. And so as you're breathing in, you are aware that you are breathing in. As you're breathing out, you are riding that exhale all the way down. In between the inhale and the exhale, there's a little gap of nothing space. And you're going to be aware of that too. That little gap of nothing space is an opening into the present moment. And all you have to do is be aware of it. So let's show up in this moment and breathe. as you're doing this, it helps to have your attention high in your body at the forehead and crown. It just lifts you up out of the denser energies. And as you come to this moment, you'll find that there's some transition that has to happen. Certain things your body and mind were invested in have to release. And so you just walk through that discomfort. You let it be whatever it needs to be. The more you can just walk into it, the more it subsides on its own. What if it's all just okay and nothing has to change? there's a teaching that's very hard to get across. I've taught it 1,000,000 times. But the reality of it, to get it past the surface of understanding, is very difficult. It's something that has to kind of grow in you. You know, we talk about how we come in here and we let go of our stories to enter reality. Reality being that part of us, that part of consciousness that is not being filtered through some transient story of your lifetime. And we show you how to do that, and you step into that place and you feel relief. You know, at first it's a better night's sleep, but if you continue walking in that direction, it's a vast ocean of exploration. And yet, whenever you return from that exploration, there's still a whole system of stories that you entangled yourself in, calling your name. Everyone in the story knows your name. They know a lot of your buttons to push. And they pull you back in. And so there's a part of spiritual life that comes down to living the story better. You know, I would say that's more akin to religion than spirituality, but the two are not mutually exclusive and definitely interact. You know, every time you shed your story and step into something real, as you come back in with more consciousness. And so you start letting go of the things that aren't working. The things you care about start to shift. You know, you just get, a new person forges within that story through the time you spend in silence. But there's this deeper layer. Very hard to talk about. I'm not 100% sure how to approach it. Because the words you would use to describe it sound just the same as what I've always said. But they're not at the surface. The story is not reality. You are creating it as you go. And it's built around a misplaced identity of self. You are something so much deeper than this world that has built around your name. And that part of you that is deeper is the same part of me that is deeper, is the same part of everyone in your world that is deeper. It's one big thing. And within that one big thing is this mechanism, this intelligent, divine mechanism that creates a world that can entrap and separate attention, but only apparently. And it makes you think that you are something separate from me, that you're something separate from everyone around you. And it walls that separation in with all of your stories. And then it tucks a bunch of that process into your subconscious so that it's very difficult to let go of your identity. I mean, surely those of you who really go at this with me, surely you notice that when you're really practicing, you do get to a place where you can actually let go of your identity and just be in your real self, that you can actually see that. You can open up like the head of a flower, and yet those roots are still there. And that no matter how far you expand, the story always kind of comes screaming back in. It's the reason that we have all these different religions and walks of life and things like that. Because we've learned that it's, even if you let go of it consciously, there's still this part of you that you cannot directly tap into, that's always pulling you back in. So you still need to learn how to navigate in the story. But it's still not real. I mean, it's real in the sense that it's happening, but it's real like a group hallucination, like group paranoia, right? A bunch of people who maybe started thinking that some person was out to get them who was never out to get them, but because one person believed it so much, another person believed it, and before you knew it, you started looking for evidence, from your environment, and suddenly that leads you to interpret things differently, and it seems like you even got evidence, and then that person starts acting strangely towards you, and you don't realize it's because you're looking really weird as you look at them. But you see that as a confirmation, and so you just create this group hallucination, this self-fulfilling situation that isn't at its root real. The way you feel about everything is that. Everything. Your joys, your pains, all of it. Everything that you think is good or bad in your day. Have you ever questioned what makes it good or bad? Have you ever followed that storyline back to find its root. What's good about good? What's bad about bad? You won't find it. Don't get me wrong. There are examples of horrible suffering in this world, caused by major imbalances in people's ability to live out their stories. But in your personal life, for most of you, the most impactful things are not life and death storylines. They're nagging attitudes and opinions that are very difficult to free yourself from. They're the way you wake up in the morning. You know, so I'm in Italy right now, and it's 2 a.m. here, or close to 2:20 or something. And so I'm going to sleep, not really, knowing that I'm going to have to get up and teach, you know. And I'm lying there, and within this ocean of silence, there's this story about this thing I have to do, you know, and the consequences on the next day, right? Tomorrow we're getting on a train and we're going to another area in Italy, and, you know, will I have time to do my spiritual work in the morning, and, you know, before we have to check out and get everything taken care of? And there's all of this stuff around teaching a class at 2 freaking a.m. in the morning. But all of that is just a story. It's just a bunch of little programs that got triggered in me to start putting together a storyline and assigning all sorts of meaning to things, right? All this fatigue-based meaning. Do you guys assign a lot of fatigue-based meaning to things? None of it has its own reality. Someone else would wake up and do this and not think anything of it. You know, I have a little brother who, you know, you can wake him up at 5 in the morning to drive someone to an airport and he doesn't think anything of it. Whereas for me, it would be this giant thing that I carry with me all throughout my day. It just depends on what your stuff is. But the fact that it's different from one person to another should be enough to tell you it's not real. It's a story. It's a story that if I'd like that to be true, all I have to do is give it my attention. So that means tomorrow when I wake up on less than normal sleep, I look back at the fact that I did something in the middle of the night, and I use that as a storyline to thread through my day to feel fatigued and miserable until I can then get the sleep that I want to get. And then that cancels out the story. Alternatively, I think we've all had experiences where we didn't get enough sleep, but then we had to go to work, and maybe work was very engaging and things like that, and you had the energy you needed because you were focused on something else. But if your focus has that much power, do you see? It's a story. It isn't real. And it's not just my night that is built around a story. Your whole identity is just a tangled web of stories. So what's the value in saying these things? The value in saying these things is to help you understand the road forward. Meditation gives you an opportunity to open up out of the story. And the value of that is huge because it actually shows your subconscious that there's another way forward. Remember those stories, they go deep into your subconscious. There's a part of them that you can't just pull up. Those roots go too deep. You know, if you just try and pull them up, they break and they regrow. But what you can do is you can plant new roots. And the way that you do that is by exiting the story consciously for periods of time. Bringing that into your day wherever you can. A really powerful thing you can do is be caught up in the story, recognize it, and step out of it. That's huge. And that's what we do every week in this class. That's what I did as I was lying in bed looking at the storyline of teaching in the middle of the night. When you do that, you actually provide an experience that goes into your subconscious and starts changing things. You can't really see how it's changing things, but there is an alchemical effect from a moment like that. You can walk through life and catch yourself when you're starting to build a narrative, when you're starting to build a case against somebody, when you're starting to get triggered. And you can use the simple tools we've given you in this class to flip out of it. If you're really triggered, picture yourself sitting in the chair that you sit in when you listen to this class. Give your attention to the forehead and crown and breathe. And be open in the face of the discomfort. It will come clear. It will let go. And as that happens, you will be providing new information to that subconscious that will actually work with the storylines, so that what arises without your conscious choosing slowly over time refines itself. You know, you don't know how insidious it is and how deep it goes until you really start doing everything you can to address it. You know, when you're really given to your spiritual training, you know, and for some of you, this might not be your main training, but whatever you're doing, when you really decide to go all in, that's when it really starts to dawn on you the task at hand, the depth of it. But by then you will have seen enough results that you know there's something there worth doing. And honestly, what else is there to do? I mean, what are we here to do? Spin around in a few circles and then die? Make some money and then die? If you've shown up for a class like this, there's more to you than that. You're here to come to understand what you actually are. Which we could slap some names on it, but you have to just see it for yourself. It comes clearer and clearer the more time you spend in reality, outside the stories. Are there any questions about that before we go into meditation? Okay, if there are, you can put them in the chat. For now, come to the forehead and crown. Watch your breath. Show up in this moment. And just be with every inhale and exhale. And when the mind comes in to make things more complicated, simply don't play with it. Let the mind be the mind. You be the watcher of your breath. There's nothing to do, nothing to fix. Nothing to understand or achieve. Just watch the breath in this moment, nothing else. Some of you are reaching outside of this moment. Pull yourself back in. Pull yourself into the room where you actually are. Fill that space. Contain yourself in that space. lot of times people's mind likes to wander out after different things. Sometimes it's just things they need to get done, but other times it's into other people's spaces because they think that there's something that they need to get from that person. Or the reality is, when you contain yourself in your own space, you actually create like a receptacle through which the energy that is always coming in can start to fill you up. The reality is, when you constantly kind of go reaching out to others for that help energetically, it creates a storyline of lack, and your energy actually kind of flows out. So you'll get more of what you need if you can stay contained in your own space. And what that looks like is watching where your mind is going. Is your mind leaving this room? Is your mind leaving your energy field to kind of push or pull on somebody else? Very natural thing people do, but it actually puts a hole in your aura that energy kind of just drains out of. Better to keep the locus of control close to you. By containing yourself. This week, I want you to work with that. Okay? I want you to kind of notice where your mind is. Is my mind outside of the actual space that I'm in? Or if you're in a very busy space with lots of people, is my mind reaching out beyond my personal boundary, beyond my aura, so to speak? Okay? Or is it contained? Am I self-contained? Now, if you have to communicate with somebody, then communicate with them. And that reaching out will naturally happen, and then it'll stop when that communication is done. But when that isn't happening, this constant reaching out that you do, it drains you. It drains you, and it interferes with other people's energy. So it sets up some karma in the process too. So I want you to show this to yourself this week. I want you to notice how, when you take a moment, ask yourself, where is my attention? Is it reaching out of this moment and out of my space? And when it is, you kind of pull it back in and just sit like that and breathe. I want you to notice how actually that gives you the thing you were reaching out for. It actually fulfills that request. For two reasons. One, because the energy that naturally is always flowing through you has something to fill that no longer has a hole in it. And two, because it is a direct message to the subconscious that you are complete and whole, and that you're not missing anything, that you're not lacking anything. Those two things together are very powerful. You know, we all catch ourselves doing it, so I'd like you all to just focus on that this week, okay? Are there any questions about that before I go back to bed?
I had a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Um, while you were explaining everything, a thought just came to my mind and I couldn't unmute it, so I couldn't ask it. Um, so let's say I'm remembering something from the past and that's causing me anxiety and depression and sadness. And I catch myself crying about it, but other times I don't cry about it, and I'll grab a book and read and learn from that to see how I can have better communication to understand what I'm going through. Should I let that moment sink in when I'm crying and let it go through? Or should I deviate and say that's part of the past? I got to move forward and learn from that experience and see how I can change it so that won't occur again.
So it's a yes to both. Obviously, not knowing a lot of the details, it's hard to give you clear advice on that, but I can tell you in general, the approach to that spiritually would be one, to have the feeling and to understand that grief usually is the process of feeling pain to fill a hole that has been made in you. You know, when something gets taken from you, whether that's a person or your dignity or anything that you don't know how to live without, there is a grief process to that that involves actually thinking about it and processing it. And so that experience slowly fills in the hole. However, sometimes if that hole just isn't getting filled in, that is where professional help becomes important. And I know we've talked about that before. Uh, my advice in general would be that it depends, okay? Sometimes something is so big that to deal with it, if you've already tried walking right into it and just breathing with it, and I mean you've really gone there and you've tried that a lot, if that's not working, sometimes you actually need to give yourself a little space from it. You know, some of the difficulties that I've had when I could not quite get past them, my teacher's advice was stop talking to yourself about it. You know, give yourself some space and you can return to it when you have grown a certain distance. But that's literally if nothing else is working. And anything of that magnitude should be overseen, I think, by a competent mental health practitioner. Okay? But what I have found is that when nothing else is working, if I am caught in a trap of this is constantly coming up and I can't stop myself from talking to myself about it or even talking to others about it, I have at certain points forbid myself to speak of it just to shut down the cycle so that I could get enough emotional distance from it to take a more objective view of it later on. So that's something to consider, to play with. I'm not telling you to do it, okay? I don't know enough about your situation to say that. But I'm just putting some tools in your hand that people have used in the past. But again, that's if you really can't find your peace within it, you know, and what that looks like is stepping directly into the pain and just doing your best to stay open while the fear and the pain and the crying kind of come over you. You just continue to open, but you don't run away from it. Okay? And you find your openness in the middle of it. Another thing you could try, and maybe something that I would recommend, is that you take into your meditation the request, the prayer to whoever you want to pray to, whether it's your higher self or a god of some religion, whatever you want. It's all divine intelligence. And what you ask is, help me see this from your perspective. Help me see this from the perspective of God, from the perspective of the designer of this human experience, from the highest vantage point. Help me to see this from your perspective. And then you open yourself and you let your perspective be rearranged. Okay? That's another really good one.
That makes sense. I didn't think about that, but that makes total sense.
And if it's a person, yeah, of course. And if it's a person that you're hurting over, you can also ask to help to see it from their perspective, to see what are they seeing?
I have thought about that though. I have tried to put myself in the other person's shoes, and reading a lot, different books, and getting knowledge of why sometimes I can't talk because of my traumas from my past, and I freeze, and I didn't know why I was freezing and not being able to communicate with the person. But by reading the last couple of weeks, I realized that sometimes when you go through a lot of traumas, freezing is part of like a defense mechanism,
Yeah.
which is natural. And I was like, why do I freeze? Why am I afraid? So I'm reading to acquire knowledge, because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I also know that you're getting help from someone too, and make sure that that's actually helping. Make sure you got the right person.
Yeah.
Cognitive behavioral therapy can be very powerful as a tool as well. So, but these are all things you can work with. And, if you continue taking the steps that you're able to safely take, you will get where you're trying to go. Okay, the question is not how do I fix this immediately? The question is, what is the next step I can take? What can I do? Maybe I can't do X, Y, or Z, but what can I do today? And if you do it like that, that will shut down some of the freeze response because you won't be overwhelmed in the same way.
I didn't think about that. Thank you so much for that suggestion.
Yeah, you
Because
bet.
I can fix everything, and then I'm like so overwhelmed that I start crying again. But what can I do today? What one step I can do to start fixing it? It's
Yeah.
a great way to see it. So I appreciate your feedback on that. Thank you so much.
You bet. You bet. So happy you're here. All right, everybody. Anything else before we end? Okay. I will see you then next week at the same time.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Leo.
Mm-hmm.